In this short video, we're going to take a look how you can employ survey functionality in Civil 3D to build surfaces faster and with more flexibility. Logged into AutoCAD 360, therefore I'm in a drawing in a coordinate system, therefore where I am in space, I can get an image up. I have a survey database created from raw points files. It represents, if we open this query and preview this one, you'll see we have about, those are just the center points from which I could make a best fit alignment and all that kind of stuff. As you can see, we'll take a look at all the points just to show you that this is the real world. Just slam into the drawing for a second. This is about 4,000 points, about 3,000 feet of roadway, a roadway improvement and sewer storm drain improvement project. And we'll just zoom in, do an REA to rescale my scalable points. And as you can see, the job is pretty much shot with a standard station and offset stuff and represents a substantial amount of data. What I'd really like to see, and let's remove those points, which is wonderfully fast when you have a survey database and there's survey points. What I like to do is build up a surface, mostly to do QA and QC. It won't be my final published surface, but because I still have, as we can see, some figure edits to do, and I probably have some other miscellaneous stuff, and having a raw surface built off the survey data would really be handy for me to QA and QC things. So one of the nifty things surveys is that you can export, edit, and re-import survey queries. We already saw the centers one and how that works inside a database, but you can also keep your own little library of ones that you use for job after job. And for instance, let's just open that one. Those are obvious, simple flow line ones. You can preview that, and that produces a result. And since I use the same keys all the time, hey, reusing the queries makes a heck of a lot of sense. We can also back out to my little library here, and here's all my paint striping. And we can preview that in the drawing and zoom in, and we can see from the job that this file happened to come from, I used the CRNs as part of the paint. There's a centerline stripe. I don't want those anymore, so we can actually edit that file, and we really want double yellows, which you'll notice do not show up here, and I'm going to use the crowns and use a different query to bring those in. So I want double ones, and we can clear our old result, preview this new result, and there's the edited query, and it will produce double line paint inside my query. So I can now save that file, go back up to my library, pick exactly the same file and overwrite it, replace it, so each job my queries keep getting better and better. Let's clear that, close that, and I'd like to import my entire library, or at least parts of my entire library. And I want my back block lines, I want my crown lines, I want my flow lines, I want the gore striping, I want the lips, and I want my top of curb figures as well. And say okay, and open all those. That was pretty easy. And now, so now for my queries, I want to add those queries to my surface. I'm going to create a new one. Just going to name it EGO1. We want it as triangles and points, and that's a QC style. I want to pick all my imported definitions, put those in the surface. But before I do anything, all I really want to do is reference the survey database, because I'm going to be editing the figures and making them better. So I really do not want all the points and all the actual figure objects in this surface. In other words, I want a very dynamic surface that'll help me find and fix errors and not a finished product at this point. And so I'm going to say OK, and boom, immediately I get a surface. Let's just dock my panel down below. Go back to my geolocation tab, and for now I'm going to turn off my map. We get a surface almost immediately. I want a few other things that are not in this surface. Let's bring in all the survey points, put those back in the drawing. And then we need, from the figures, we don't need the points from the drawing, so we're going to remove the figure points from the drawing. And that gives us a much smaller set of point data. And up in the Prospector tab, I have a point collection. Consists of all the stuff not in figures that I have put in. I want this exported. I want to export it to an AUF file. And I'm going to overwrite the one I did previously. And so now I have points that are not in the figures as well that I can add to my surface. So from my surface, I can grab that. Here's my definition. And as you can see, those figure points are technically in there. I may want to remove those and change that order. So for example, I could remove all those point ones. So I'm just getting the break lines. I also may want to sort this order. So I really want that. Notice one of the annoying things is that if you move the order, it turns back on the data sources. Do the moving, then turn off the data sources. And I want to get my crown to the top. So it's doing crown, move down. And now I want to turn those point ones off again. And rebuild my surface, say OK. So I've got my point definitions. I don't need the points in the drawing anymore. Over in the prospector of my surface, I want to add to my definition a point file, that one I just produced. Down my project, and I'm looking for files of type AUF, and there's my surface points that don't include break lines, and it is an AUF file, and I want to add those. Boom, and that'll automatically update my surface, and I have a pretty good representation of what my surface is. However, my surface boundary consists of all the usual crud that you get. One of the nice things about surfaces is that there are a bunch of tools to make sorting that out and get rid of stuff faster and easier in Civil 3D. So once again, we can go into our surface properties, and in the build properties, there are a couple of ways to do this. We could test a couple of methodologies. The maximum angle between sometimes works real well, depends upon your data set. Just in this case, I'm going to use a maximum length. I know my shots were at about 25 feet, so I'm going to pick a little bit bigger than that. Hit apply, rebuild my surface, and as you can see, I end up with a bunch of holes, so that's too big. Let's go up to like 75 feet, hit apply, and I'll end up with a few holes, but a fairly tight outside border. And let's just say okay for a moment. grab my surface. As you can see, I do have lots of holes in my surface. If I make it just a border, you'll see I do have little chunks and pieces, holes cut out of this surface in its current state. Gonna look at that one pretty carefully. But if I turn it back to triangles and points, I have a lot less junk to clean up. The border, the outside border of this may be good enough. I could select my surface, make a couple of fine-tuned deletes here. Let's get rid of this little stuff on the edge. Edges of my streets tend to be cruddy too. Find a few other places where I want to delete lines that I could go through the process, clean up things so I have a really tight boundary without the usual crud and a heck of a lot less time. And manually going through and doing all of the edits and deletes. But let's just say we're done. We have our surface collected. So what I want to extract from the surface, and I just want the outside border and I don't care about any of the other pieces, and that'll generate a 2D polyline. And we're all done. Just for grinnies, let's just turn off my surface for the moment. All I have left is a 2D polyline. Happens to be generated on a tin boundary layer. I can move it, put it anywhere I want, but that is going to become the outer boundary for my temporary or maybe even my permanent surface. If I wanted to, I could W block it out and use it time after time. So now let's turn our surface back on. By changing its style from invisible, we have multiple forms of triangles and points. So if I want to visualize things, I could see it. Oops, I forgot. I have holes in my surface. So I need to go back to my definition and now turn off my temporary use of maximum triangle length inside the surface. Rebuild with my new handcrafted boundary and have a pretty good surface. And if I want to spin that up into the object viewer, crank things around, and we do shaded with edges and we get our greens. Notice I still get to see the points, handy in the style to see where the point locations are in the surface. So we get a good surface result really quickly to help us refine our surface and improve the figures. Remember, our survey data is actually generating this surface model. So edits to my figures, edits to my points will update this model dynamically. So it allows me to see it, change its form, take a look at what it looks like. Might want to play with the style a couple other ways. Always a good idea to check. We'll just do contours with slope arrows. It gives me a pretty quick pass over what things look like. X-reference in my figures. From another drawing, I can see how the slope arrows relate to the figures and do they all make sense. I can tune the analysis of the slope arrows easy enough, check look for busted shots. The blues are and the purples are much steeper. So here, for example, I've got something going on with a busted shot or something happening out in the middle of this intersection. Civil 3D has great analysis tools to help you debug and clean up your survey data, and you can do it live with the use of a survey database and survey queries in AutoCAD Civil 3D.